This B&M transfer case shift handle is for those of you that have a 2018 and up JL that are looking for a handle that's not only going to change up the look of your Jeep, but also to change up the functionality a little bit. This is going to be something that's very easy to install, 1 out of 3 wrenches, and we're going to show you how to do that in just a second. So whenever you see any sort of interior modification like this, you initially think, okay, so that's going to make my Jeep look a little bit different. It's going to give it a little bit of a custom look. And this handle will absolutely do that. It's definitely going to have a different look than factory. It has this red and black color scheme, which can look really nice if you have a Rubicon that has that red dashboard or even different exterior colors. But when I say this also adds some functionality, it is because it's a little bit taller and it's also a little bit offset. So it's going to be closer to your leg while you're driving, and being that it's taller, it's also going to add a little bit of additional leverage to make it easier for you to shift in and out of different transfer case gears. Now, it is important to note that this has a 2 high, 4 high, neutral, and 4 low delineation on the top, so you want to make sure that whichever transfer case you have on the Jeep is going to match that, or just know in your head that even if it doesn't match up exactly which notch is which. So one thing I really like about this is that it is clearly an aftermarket part. It's clearly an addition to the interior of your Jeep, but because it does use that factory boot, it goes from aftermarket part to factory part really smoothly. It's a really clean transition, and overall I think it's a really well-built piece, whether you're using it as a standalone or with other red accents, whether it's a Rubicon with that red dash or a Sport or a different trim package. I think it's going to have really a nice look on the inside of your Jeep. Now, because this thing is so well built, because it is so well put together, the machining is really well done, all of the painting, the finish on it, everything is just top notch. You are going to pay a little bit more for this piece, on top of the fact that it is aluminum, which is in general a more expensive material to work with. So this is going to come in at right around that $175 mark. Now, whether it's worth that price tag or not is completely up to you and where you like to spend your money on your Jeep. But like I said before, the machining and the quality of the part is definitely there, so I don't think you'd be disappointed when you take this out of the box. As I mentioned, very simple to get this installed on your Jeep. Let's show you how to do it. For this installation, we used a T25 Torx bit socket on a 1/4 inch socket driver. We also needed 2 small Allen keys. You'll need a low profile 9/16 open head wrench and a pair of wire cutters. This is going to be a very easy 1 out of 3 wrench installation. We just have to get our factory shift knob out of the way here so we can add our new one in its place. And in order to do that, first we have to get the shift boot disconnected from the center console itself. Now, that's just a press fit piece of plastic in there, so you kind of have to feel around through the leather, hook your finger on it, and then you can jiggle it loose and essentially invert the boot over top of the handle. That will give you access to the set screw that you'll loosen and then get the factory handle completely out of the Jeep. There you can see the set screw that we have to remove, so we'll grab a Torx bit to get that removed. With our T25 Torx socket, we'll remove that set screw. And that will allow us to completely remove the shifter handle from the Jeep. At this point, we've jumped out of the Jeep, and what we're going to be doing is removing the shifter boot from your factory shifter and attaching it onto our new shifter. In order to do that, we're going to flip the boot back over top of the knob, exposing the knob, and then just give it a pull, and this is going to separate, as you can see. This is our factory knob we're going to set aside. We're not going to be using that anymore. And if we invert the boot one more time, there is a small plastic ring that came off that has our set screw in it. Here we go. We're going to be able to remove that from the rest of the boot and set that aside as well. Then we can set our rubber collar aside with our factory shift knob. So now we can get our boot installed on our new shifter, and this is when we have to be careful as to orientation. So where our 2 set screws there, that's going to be facing us as the driver. And when we look at our boot, there is a lower side, and then there's a side that dips down a little bit here. This is also going to be closer to you as the driver. So we want both of those sides to be aligned as they are here. Now what we can do is set the shifter inside of the boot. Again, keeping that orientation, you don't want to rotate it. You want to slide it up until the bottom of the boot is right at the flat spot that is machined onto the shifter. So we'll take our cable tie that comes in the kit for us, and we want the locking mechanism, the larger locking mechanism of the cable tie, to be on the front flat spot. There's a front one and a back one, so that's actually going to be back on this side here, so we'll just give it a 180-degree rotation. But again, we kept the orientation of the shifter itself and the boot the same. Now we can tighten down our cable tie, making sure that the latching mechanism lands right on that flat spot there. And once it's nice and tight, we can trim off the excess of the cable tie. At this point, we can re-invert the boot. So now you can see what it's going to look like when it's on the Jeep. We have everything lined up. Again, the driver's side of the boot is aligned with the driver's side of the shifter, so everything is nice and straightened out and tight on there. We don't have any wrinkles or anything like that in the boot, so we're good to go. Now what we are going to do is re-invert the boot just a little bit so we have access to the bottom of the shifter, so when we pop back in the Jeep, we can slide the shifter over top of the factory linkage, and we still want to have access also to this set screw hole here, so we can put this small set screw that comes in our kit in that hole and lock everything down. So now that we're done with the boot, we'll jump back in the Jeep and get the shifter installed. Now we're ready to slide our new shifter handle over top of our factory linkage, and we're going to grab the smaller of our two set screws and we're going to install that in the hole we just showed you. With a small Allen key, we'll tighten that down. At this point, we'll pull the boot back down over the top of the shifter. We're not going to snap it in place just yet in case we need to make any adjustments to that set screw there, but we'll kind of get it pulled down roughly where it's going to go. And at this point, we can install our next set screw, and that's going to be the one that goes up top here in this larger hole. The next step is to screw our knob onto our new shifter, and as you can see, there's a little bit of a locking collar here that's going to make sure that this is nice and tight in the proper orientation. So what we're going to do is just screw that all the way down for now, and we'll get our knob threaded on and tighten it down. And as you can see, the orientation of the shift pattern on the ball is inverted, so we'll just screw this back out again until it's exactly where we want it, and then we can tighten down our collar underneath there to lock it in place. In order to get our set nut on the bottom here locked in place, we're going to need a really shallow 9/16 wrench. If you don't have one of those, sometimes what you can do is get the knob exactly where you want it, get the set nut at the bottom pretty tight up against it, go a little bit further with the knob, tighten the nut down just a little bit more, and then crank the knob back to center again. And what that does is pretty much the same effect. You're just jamming that nut on the bottom up against the ball so that it doesn't want to rotate. So the last thing we need to do is snap our boot back down onto the center console. And just like it came out, it just requires a little bit of pressure to get snapped back in. As you can hear, it clicked all the way around. And that's going to do it for the installation. So if you are looking for a transfer case shift lever that's not only going to change up the interior look of your Jeep, but also add some functionality, I would recommend this option from B&M, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.